What's an encounter with a celebrity you've had where they were an absolute dick? I was sitting in the lounge in one of the big music studios in Hollywood, and Bruno Mars walks up, looks at me, and says, "Where the fuck is my cab?" I looked at him, and said, "Who the fuck are you?" I really had no idea who he was, haha. But dude did act like an absolute dick. Nicest guy ever, Billy Ray Cyrus. The studio had a policy that you're never supposed to touch the food any of the artists order or bring in, and you're especially not supposed to take any home. As I was leaving, he slipped me 2 huge meat and cheese trays out the door when no one was looking. As an intern trying to make it as an audio engineer, that sustained me for almost 2 weeks. Oprah didn't tip me on a $200 lunch. Instead, she signed a napkin for me and acted like she was doing me a huge favor. The kicker was, when she walked in, they gave away all of my other tables, so she didn't have to wait for anything. So I made $4 hour for 2 hours for the privilege of serving Oprah, and she goes on and on about signing a napkin for me that I never asked for. Used to work at a Hard Rock hotel. Mariah Carey was the absolute definition of a fucking diva. She used a bunch of employee passageways, and we were instructed that if we looked her in the eyes we would get written up. We were also told that we had to immediately vacate any room that she entered, even if we were in the cafeteria on break or in the bathroom doing our business. She's an asshole on top of that too. A few of her backup dancers accused her of sexual assault during #METOO and nothing ever came of it. Back in the 90s, I worked on the stage musical production of Beauty and the Beast. The guy who played the talking clock is an Australian celebrity by the name of Bert Newton. He always used to say hi and make conversation until he found out I was one of the lighting crew. After that, he wouldn't even glance at me. Slightly related. On the same show, I used to hang out with the dude that played Gaston at stage door having a ciggy during interval. I only recently discovered that it was Hugh Jackman. Really nice dude. Probably 10 or 11 years ago, I was working BTS of a WWE house show. My job was to find the contest winners and bring them to introduce them to a couple of the bigger stars. My immediate report went to Ricky Steamboat, who was incredible. I had a question for him, don't remember what it was anymore, but he was standing there talking to Chris Jericho. Not wanting to be rude, I stood to the side, waiting for their conversation to end before I interrupted. Jericho stopped mid-sentence, looked at me, and said, "Are you freaking lost?" When Ricky turned around to see who Jericho was talking to, he recognized me and was super pleasant and answered my question, but Jericho was pissed and thought I was a groupie or something. Mid-90s. Worked at a golf course that was so exclusive not even Michael Jordan could be a member. The day was very rainy and the course was closed to everyone except the foursome Jordan was in. He ran late, the other 3 started without him. He arrived, they loaded his clubs on the cart. I was standing probably 50 feet away as he was getting ready to leave and meet his group. No one else around. There was nothing for me to do, since no one else was on the course or the driving range. I'm not gawking or anything, just kinda marveling at how tall he is. They don't look so tall on TV. He calls me over. "How can I help you, Mr. Jordan? Can I have that towel?" "Of course, sir." "Thanks, I knew you were good for something." "Nice." For those asking, EGC in Skokie, Illinois. I wasn't implying he wanted to be a member, just that he wouldn't be allowed because they were racist. Cuba Gooding Jr. cut in line ahead of me and my sister for a pretzel at Disneyland. We were 10 and 8 years old, respectively. I met Tom Cruise once walking down Rodeo Drive. I went up to him and shook his hand. He pulled me in close and whispered "Hail Hydra" in my ear. Genuinely not sure if this is sarcasm or not. Clearly not true. Tom Cruise would have actually whispered "Hail Xenu." My uncle works at a Vegas casino. None of the Kardashians or Jenners tip anyone. Ever. He was with them for over 3 hours and didn't receive a dime and was treated like total garbage. Scott Disick, however, is a great tipper and great guy all around. This goes both ways. I ran into Kirstie Alley 25 years ago when Veronica's Close Tea was on. She was quiet but sweet. People came up and wanted photos, but she was with her kids and politely declined. citing her kids. Nearly everyone acted like she had slapped them and turned them down, but she was calm and gracious. Kinda made me sad. I met Chevy Chase many years ago. Everything you've heard is probably true. I met Woody Harrelson at health food store. I didn't realize it was him. We were talking in line. At first I thought he was being an asshole, but it turns out he is actually a really cool guy. He has a way of talking that sounds like he's being condescending and sarcastic. I've noticed it in interviews, but he isn't actually being a jerk. Ran into Pierce Brosnan while on vacation in Hawaii before Daniel Craig took the role of James Bond. He was in a gift shop and we bumped into each other. Out of surprise I pulled out my finger gun and shot him in classic Bond fashion, right in the gut. He staggered back and held his stomach, slowly dying in this gift store in front of me. As a 12-year-old it was the coolest thing ever. Reversal story. Once worked for a large movie company. I was pissed off and at the end of my workday, so when I saw an open elevator not crowded with folk as I was leaving, I quickly got in and pressed my floor number when I heard a thick voice behind me, sounding a bit far away, saying, "Hold the door." I pretended not to hear given shit mood. Doors are closing and I turn. That's when Schwarzenegger's pissed off face appears behind the slit between the ever closing doors. I asked you to hold the door, then they shut in his face and the elevator went down. I'm so sorry T-800. Not me, a friend of mine. He worked on Looper in New Orleans. It was a very common occurrence where Bruce Willis would wander off of set, a call would come over the walkie, and various PAs would be sent to scour the area to find him. My buddy found him in a bar, sheepishly approached him, and said, "I'm sorry to bother you Mr. Willis, but they're calling for you on set." Bruce Willis looked up at him and then proceeded to just keep drinking. I think it was a G&T, like he wasn't even there. My buddy had to walk outside, radio and that he had found him, and wait for someone with a higher pay grade to come and wrangle him back to set. Edit. Shit. Just remembered I have one from set as well. My first movie gig, while I was still in college, was crafty PA on Skeleton Key. The rap party was at a bar I went to pretty regularly. The DJ spun awesome soul music. It was just good times. My roommate who got me the job and I showed up to the rap party. As soon as it started, we were broke college kids, and it was an open bar. We grab a table, load it with tequila shots, our department head shows up, and we proceed to get really hammered and have a good time. About an hour and a half into the party, we get approached by bar security. Apparently Kate Hudson had arrived to the party and she wanted the table 6 of us are sitting at. We protested a bit, but were then told we could get up and stay at our own rap party or be thrown out of the venue. We choose to just leave our own rap party because it was such a shitty situation. Met Naomi and Winona Judd at a meet and greet session at Kmart corporate headquarters. I had a Kmart store planned from their hometown for them to autograph. Winona was a complete uber bitch. She scribbled her name on it and then crunched up the paper and threw it at me with some sarcastic comment about rednecks and hillbillies. Then her mom, Naomi, took the paper, gently smoothed it out, and told me that it was the most thoughtful thing she had autographed all day. Very nice and genuine woman. How are those two blood related? Went to Gen Con a few years ago, and Will Wheaton was right behind my husband and I. I'd had a huge crush on him as a young girl, and looked up to him. I turned around and asked if he minded if I snapped a quick photo. He pretended that I never spoke. His wife gave me these sad eyes, and then his fucking lackers explained that he doesn't talk to fans. Well, fuck you too, dude. You could have spoken to me. We were 3 feet apart. Now I can't watch any episodes or movies he is in. It kills it for me. I see his true nature. I never said anything mean. I respected his personal space and walked away after being told no. I didn't force an over-the-shoulder selfie either. Donking. I didn't recognize who he was and asked for his ID so that I could check him into the hotel. When I looked up from the computer screen, the look he was giving me made me turn completely cold. I genuinely thought we were seconds from this guy reaching out and grabbing me to hurt me for daring to not recognize him. I'm not a big person, and he is a very tall man. Fortunately, a coworker who did recognize him intervened and took over the transaction, giving him what he felt was the proper amount of ass kissing. After that point, as far as he was concerned, I no longer existed. Super rude, but the anger and malice in his expression when I hadn't recognized him just left me grateful to have him turn his attention away. I think he did say something along the lines of "Don't you know who I am?" But I honestly don't remember it. I just remember the look on his face. I've dealt D-list celebrities and plenty of sports stars who pull the "Don't you know who I'm" card all the time, and I'm generally just amused by it. This was something else altogether. He creeped me the fuck out. Sorta my fault, but I met a well-known gay Brit celeb in a gay bar. I was there because a girl I had a crush on, and who had just had a bit of a breakup, wanted to go with a drink without being hassled by men. She didn't know that I fancied her, but anyway I offered to take her, as a friend, out for a drink or two, and she said she wanted to go to a well-known gay bar in town. Anyway, this celeb came into the place, and she got all excited and asked him for autograph and photos, and was generally being a little bit of a nuisance to him. Sure, he just wanted to have a drink without this, but he was cool about it. I was totally drunk at this point, and wanted to thank him for being cool about it, so I, a straight guy, went up to well-known gay celeb in a gay bar, and asked if I could buy him a drink. He just looked down at his nose at me, disgusted, and said, "I don't think so." This is late, but it needs to be said. I was a bookstore worker for a large chain in a popular city. We did a ton of author signings and talks. Authors are almost universally great. George R.R. Martin was fantastic and really insightful to fans' questions. Stephen King is awesome and stays for everyone. Chuck Palahniuk is great and really hilarious. Toni Morrison stayed and talked in the coffee shop for hours. Margaret Atwood knows more about books and sci-fi than literally anyone I've ever met. However, the shit crown goes to Mitch Albom. He's a colossal dick to everyone. He openly berated the baristas and the cafe for his coffee's lack of quality. He was a prick to every employee. He sat in this super tight t-shirt and sat with his left arm behind his right to try and push out his biceps and look buffer, which is hilarious because he's maybe 5'6" and 130 lbs. I'm not going to go as far and say he sexually harassed women, but he was slimy and gross to every woman in sight from ages 18 to 45. It was the worst signing ever. Plus, he acted like Tuesdays with Maury is wisdom on level with the Dalai Lama. My boss actually had to ask him to leave immediately when his scheduled signing was over. His handler/agent was a very nice woman who was clearly sick of his shit. That poor lady. A drunken Robbie Neville tried to start a fight with some friends and I at a gas station because he claimed we cut him off. He was belligerent, swearing up a storm, and not entirely coherent. He also punched the gas pump we were at because that's just how upset he was. Our reaction was 80% what the frick and 20% go home, you're drunk, and eventually he just went from screaming at us to screaming at us from his car. This was a little after his dad had died. I went to a convention near my town. It was a sort of cartoon convention and gaming convention combo. On 10 separate occasions I was asked, "Do you know who I am?" Not a signal one of them were people I knew. When I expressed this, they all had the same responses, but with different names. My name is Sprinkletim, or some equally ridiculous name, and I have over 50,000 subscribers on YouTube/Twitch. Apparently there was a panel being held about how to grow your internet persona. It drew out some of the worst people ever. I wouldn't even call any of these people celebrities, but that was the image they had in their heads. I've worked on the sets of major films and television shows for the past 4 years. I would like to share a different perspective, if I may. When a show/film has a cast with a fan base, those fans show up to on-location filming. On some shows that are well-known reoccurring locations, there are often many fans that will show up to set. The locations team does their best to corral them into a single location that is out of camera, but close enough that they don't try to sneak around and become security risks. Many times, the cast members will take the time to come over to the group of fans and take pictures/shake hands/sign autographs. I'll begin with the things that people say. There's always a few birthdays in the crowd because it's my birthday demands attention. There's always someone who traveled from a different country just to be there. A bunch of people bring fan art and random gifts. Sometimes someone missed a cancer treatment or a funeral or any other number of things that are an attempt to garner sympathy. Now I may sound cold, but who are any of those people to put that kind of baggage on a stranger, and all at once no less? Having stood there and listened to the fans bark out their ailments and woes in an attempt to have the ear of their crush, it's a pathetic sight, and it must weigh on those actors. When Justin Bieber announced that he was no longer doing meet and greets with fans while touring, I agreed with a little shit. Now, the things that people do. Remember a couple years ago there was a news story out of Argentina about the baby dolphins being killed by tourists who had captured them and then passed them around to take selfies? That's what comes to mind when I see our cast with a giant group of fans. They've got security and still they've been surrounded. People get grabby. People push forward. People are determined to get their damned selfie. People feel some misplaced sense of entitlement. And the actor has to keep a straight face, because mixed in with the press of fans are perhaps waiting to snap a nasty moment. There are reasons people want to be left alone, and actors are people at the end of the day.